Billy McNamara, actor, yogi, firefighter, hero, psychonaut.
Okay.
Welcome to In the Nod.
Thank you very much.
I am so happy to have you. We have a long history. We've known each other since we were children, and then you hit it in Hollywood and took off, and you were very missed by all the sort of young girls that were sniffing around you at that time, and then your life has taken a new path.
It's funny. I remember when I came back after I did that movie Stealing Home with Jodie Foster. It came out in the Southampton theater, so I had to go back to Southampton when it was open. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but there were a couple of girls that rejected me when I was in Southampton. I'm not going to name them names. I'm sure you know who they are, by the way, if I mention them. And they had all rejected me when I was just a kid in Southampton going to boarding school. And I came back on purpose to Southampton, and I took each one of those, there was 3, each one of them, to the movie Stealing Home at the Southampton movie theater, and had sex with each one of them on the beach, just because I could and because I wasn't able to and I was not.
And you were testing them.
Yes.
You were testing them, setting up those feelers. Well,
I was a kid. I mean, that's what boys and young people do. They're new to having that, and so they want to have a lot of it. Why not?
Yeah, I still wouldn't have a lot of it. Okay, so Billy, tell me what's going on with your career. You've got this great new series coming up, which I have to say the trailer is out of this world.
It's fantastic.
Trouble with Billy.
With Billy. And it's been a long process, and there's a reason why it's been a long process. I started the whole thing like 8-9 years ago with my first pit bull, Boo, and she passed away. And so that kind of put an end to a lot of the work that I just lost interest. I basically developed this thing. I was doing little vignettes for like YouTube and Facebook with my dog, not written, and that sort of evolved into writing some scenes and getting other friends, actors like Randall Battenkoff or Billy Baldwin or Angus McFadden to do little scenes with me. And so that evolved into making scripts. My dog died, and I went through a deep, deep depression, really bad.
I can identify.
And I had to go on, antidepressant pills, and it was a very bad scene. And so years went by, and I didn't do anything with the Trouble with Billy, and then all of a sudden I thought I would never get another dog. So I said I cannot go through this again. It's just too much. Spend a lot of money too, because towards the end when they've got cancer, you're do anything and you'll spend every penny you've got. And so, and then this dog came in, me and my rescue partner, I would say, Allison Eastwood, we had a show on Nat Geo. We used to rescue exotic animals. And so and Allison started Eastwood Ranch Foundation, which is a dog adoption rescue. And we did a huge rescue out in San Bernardino. And we got a lot of dogs adopted, but we had to put a lot of them in kennels and pay for them. So Allison asked me to go out and walk them as much as I could, so I did. And one of them was, and very hard to get pit bulls adopted, but we took a couple of great ones. And so I did bond with this new pit bull. And
it was inevitable.
Yeah, it was inevitable. And so and so it had been years, and, I took her home to foster her, basically. And you know what happens when you foster, especially pit bulls are so great. Anyway, I fell in love with the dog, and I thought, yeah, you know what? I'm going to have Twinkie play Boo in the show. And so I did the first 4 episodes, and I ran out of money. I was using my own money, and I ran out. And a couple of my friends said, Billy.
The actor's dilemma.
Yeah. And not only that, they're like, Billy, your self-fulfilling prophecy is you are going to end up living in your car with your dog if you don't stop. Because I was addicted to spending money on it. A new editor, new music, try this, try that. And so I cut it into a movie, and I did a pretty good job. I shot an ending and just threw it together and did a good job. And as I was shopping it as a movie, I just started shopping it. A production company, through a friend of mine in New York, contacted me and said, we like your movie, but we think it would be better as a series. I'm like, Okay, well, what are you proposing to do? We're proposing to take your movie and cut it into 4 episodes and give you some money, not a lot, but we'd like you to write, shoot, produce, direct 6 more episodes. So we have 10 altogether.
Well, what I love so much about it, and I'm gonna post the
link.
The link.
Good.
What I love so much about it, and it's such an unusual take, is the self-deprecation and the humor. And it's, you rarely see actors do it. I mean, you really have to sort of come into yourself in order to be able to do that, because the average actor would never.
No.
I mean, there's a Larry David aspect to it.
Yes.
I actually think this is funnier, to be honest with you, but it's hard to come to that point in which, so you've got a lot going on in your life, and I guess this sort of segue into my next sort of question or topic, because there are a lot with you, which would be sort of yoga and self-realization.
Yeah, so, the whole yoga thing, I started out, I got during a time of, again, depression. Which I suffered with.
Look, if you live a long life, right?
Yeah. I was back. I had just gone through a massive lawsuit in Malibu. Ended up resulting in losing my house, my house that I owned on the beach. It's a long story. I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah, no, you don't need to. Yeah.
And so I moved back to New York for a little while. I was doing law. I got Law and Order. That's another long story. Got fired because Chris Maloney didn't like me, but I got paid for all the episodes. But I moved back to New York. I thought, I'm going to get back to my roots. LA totally screwed me over. This whole legal thing was rough. Lawyers and courtrooms. It's, if you don't know about it.
I do know about it. I know about it very well.
Yeah. So I'm just saying in general for the audience, if you don't know about it, you don't want to know.
Yeah, you do not want to get caught into that trap, because it is endless and there's no way out.
There's no way out.
So keep your head low.
Yeah.
Keep your head way low.
That's right. So I went to New York City and I got into kirtan. And I found my mom had a house in upstate New York, which I spent every weekend there with my dog, Boo, my pit bull. And there was an ashram close by called Ananda in Harriman, New York, named after the Harriman.
Right, after the Harriman's Pamela and her husband. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful part of upstate New York. My mom's place was in Millbrook, so 45 minutes away. Yeah, and so it's a beautiful spot. And every weekend I went there and did some yoga, and they did kirtan there. So it was like I was able to get lost in this whole thing and all these kind of hippie kids,
Super healing.
Super healing. And so I met a guy there who was best friends with Krishna Das. Grew up with him. Krishna Das is KD. Of course I do. And so I met KD. And I'd go to all these kirtans, small kirtans with KD, and I was brought into their group. So I met all those guys, Bruce Margolin.
I didn't know Krishna Das was in New York.
He lives in Rockaway. He lives where the Baldwins live, where the heck that is. I've been to his place.
Got it.
He has a guest house in Rockaway, New York, some weird spot. Oh, he's 100% New Yorker.
Yeah.
He's a New Yorker.
That makes sense now that you say
Through
it.
and through. And I met Ram Dass. I hung out with that whole crowd. And all their little private parties, they all followed Neem Karoli Baba. So I got to hang out with them. One day, Ram Dass gave me a gift. I still have it. I'm not Ram Dass. I'm sorry. Krishna Das gave me a gift. He gave me these beads, these wooden beads that had the string from Neem Karoli Baba's blanket as the string that held the beads together. It's kind of fallen apart, but I've got it in a Ziploc thing, sealed and everything, and I still have it. 20 years ago he gave me that. I still have it. Neem Karoli Baba's blanket. That's a big deal.
That is a huge deal. I would love to see that or just feel it. I'm sure it's really powerful.
So I was like, this is a great group, and I really felt good, and it really healed my depression. And back in the old days, Krishna Das would let his friends up on stage with him while he was playing, even at big concerts.
That's very powerful. A lot of the yogis or the gong players will do that. It's very effective.
It's very effective. So I felt like a part of this family. I had no family, no friends. So these people kind of took me in, and it was nothing cult-like at all. They don't care if you show up or not. So there's no cult here. And KD was just a really down-to-earth guy, And so that led me, when I moved back to LA, I got into all the great kirtan wallas, listen to their music, especially KD. And one day, somebody played a CD, this is back when they had CDs, Sanatam Kaur. And I'm like, who's that? He goes, oh, Billy.
Angelic, right?
Yeah, you don't know who that is? I'm like, no. And I thought I have all the Kirtan Wallas. And so they said, this is Sanatam Kaur. I'm like, what's her thing? She goes, oh, Kundalini Yoga. I said, oh, I know about Kundalini Yoga. It's a sex cult. I thought it was a sex cult. That's what I've been told.
How fun. The rumors around Kundalini never cease to amaze
Well,
me.
Kundalini sounds like, I didn't know, but it sounded like a sexual thing.
Yeah, and it's
sounded
really
like
just the coiling up the spine of
That's
the
right.
inner right.
Well, I didn't know that at the time.
Of course not.
And so I immediately went out and I bought every single one of Sanatam Kaur's CDs and listened to them like insanely a lot.
I used to do the same. Every time I drive, I would just listen to those mantras over
Right.
and over with that angelic voice. Yeah.
And I got a little crazy, as I am a little crazy. You'll probably figure that out. You probably know. I got a little obsessed with Sanatam Kaur. So I was able to track down her personal Gmail address.
Oh.
Yeah. And but her music was so healing and so amazing to me. And I was, again, depression. And it was it was healing so much. So I had to send her an email. And it was a crazy, probably 10-page email. And I sent this crazy email to her. And the next day I got a response.
You got a response?
Yes, it's crazy. I was like, right in my email box, there it is, such and such at gmail.com. I'm like, wow. And I open it up, and it's genius. It's genius.
Well, the Kundalinis are known for, they're brilliant healers, and she especially has that feminine energy.
But it's more than that. All it said was, and I said, oh, I'm messed up. I'm depressed. I'm this. You're the best in the world. You've changed my life. Blah, 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 blah. What should I do? What can I do? How do I get out of depression? How do I not suicide? How do I do this? Just gobs of stuff. Thank you. Period. Kundalini Yoga. Period. That's it. Totally broke my obsession with her because she cut right through like a laser. She said that, and she acknowledged me, and she meant when she said thank you, that was a deep thank you. That was thank
Of course.
you. And what do I do to fix? How do I solve everything? Kundalini.
Start your practice.
Boom, that's all you need. I'm done with you. Move on. And I was done with her. And
I'm not your teacher, but this is your path.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think that's how we reconnected through the yoga community, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably. Yeah.
Through Guru Jagat back in the day. But I will say it cannot be understated how transformational a practice is, whether it's yoga, it doesn't matter which kind of yoga, but Kundalini in particular for me, because those technologies I think are really advanced.
Yes.
And I think people don't understand also the power of community.
Right.
It doesn't matter what community. We're all lost, right?
That's right.
We're all searching for our tribe.
That's right.
And the first tribe I had when I was a kid was the Grateful Dead.
Right.
and I have to tell you, Kundalini, going into those classes is not much different. Just
Right.
a bunch of freaks, because I think we're all freaks, and I use that word in the most endearing sense of that word.
Right. Right.
But, I think between the Kundalini practice and I have a pretty strong psychedelic practice as well.
Yeah.
I think that the two for me have been dramatic in terms of my healing, and I've had a lot of healing to do too. And I think you also believe in the power of the plant medicine.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
It's just for those people, I think, who can't get into meditation, because it's hard for people. I know sometimes you'll say, why don't you, if someone's upset or has anxiety, I'll say, why don't you meditate? And you can see immediately they give you this sort of resentment response, that's not an answer, or that's not going to work. And I get it. It's challenging. It's a year. It's a real commitment. Whereas the plant medicine can sometimes map out for somebody where they're supposed to go with the meditation.
Right.
And it can help lead them there.
Right. The other thing I noticed, I don't want to badmouth the yoga movement, especially not Krishna Das. He's amazing, and what he's done is amazing. I'm still a huge fan. But,
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, in the yoga
Where are you going with this?
Well, what I noticed when I was going to all these things, there were a lot of people there that were doing the yoga, going to the big kirtan events. There were a lot of older men hitting on these young girls that had no money. Everybody's wearing leather. Everybody is eating lots and lots of meat. They're all partying.
Wait, what? Yeah, hold on. What?
I'm talking about the regular yoga, not Kundalini.
Okay.
Just between regular yoga, the scene in LA. I don't know if you know the yoga scene in LA outside of Kundalini. It's
I'm
different.
unfamiliar, and I did not realize there was leather-wearing yogis.
Well, not the yogis, but like these people that come to the regular yoga that follow Krishna Das, by the way. Not him and not his old timers, but all the people that are in that group.
Is this like the Bhakti yoga scene?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Sridhar.
Got it.
So yes.
Unfamiliar, but yes.
Yes. So a lot of them are hypocrites, in my opinion. And so I did get disillusioned with it because they're all meat eaters. They're all having sex with everybody. They're all, there's a lot going on, a lot of other drugs, not psychedelics, but other drugs. I thought was not consistent with the yogic. I mean, Neem Karoli Baba would talk about you can't do drugs.
I've never
Amma,
experienced anything like this.
Amma, same thing, no drugs. But there's a lot of people that are...
Is there a spiritual aspect to it? Like, see, the thing about Kundalini is it has a lineage attached to it.
Well, yes, and that's what I'm about to say. So when I did get introduced to the Kundalini crowd, I was like, wow, this is so cool. There's all these young, very attractive girls. What's cool about them is they're married or dating other young, cool, attractive dudes. None of them have money. So the girls are not looking for money. They're not yoginis looking to hook up with these guys with Porsches or also hang out at kirtan events. So I thought, wow, this is cool. None of them eat meat. So I thought, wow, this.
We don't drink, generally speaking.
Yeah, there's I didn't see any marijuana or alcohol at all.
No, it's considered really low vibration.
Correct.
Really low vibration.
The Kundalini vibe was like, wow, this is the real deal. So I know that HBO documentary, I think it did such a disservice to the real community and how amazing they are and how they stick to they have a code and they stick to it, unlike this other sort of group that runs around Bhakti Fest.
Yeah, the documentary was propaganda and it was fine and whatever, I guess the girl got her 5 minutes and it did not impact the community. So, and it certainly is not going to impact a tradition that's gone back for millennia. Right. So, it is what it is. They got their crack at it, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
That's
but clearly, for the two of us, it's been impactful. I'm so grateful for my practice.
Yeah, it's great.
So now another side of you, Billy, is recently. As most people know who are listening to this podcast, we've had some incredible fires and incredible misfortune in LA. This is not the first time you have taken on a heroic role in sort of acting as your own firefighter, saving animals. I think you know this, that I come from a horse family and my daughter's an equestrian. So, and you can see I've got tortoises and birds and dogs in this house. So, I think most people really appreciate animal activism.
Sure.
It's pretty powerful. So what have you been doing and what kind of trouble have you been getting yourself into with the fires?
Well, it's funny. I've been doing a lot of interviews. A lot of people are interested now. I did this 7 years ago on the Woolsey fires, the Malibu fires.
Oh, I remember that. That was crazy. You almost died in that, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. I didn't get any good press. In fact, I did get investigators that were investigating the fire contacted me, and I was in trouble. Yeah, I got in trouble for doing what I thought was the right thing to do.
And it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. And I've done a lot of, rescue work. I was a Sea Shepherd back in 2003, so I was one of the original people that was at the Cove, Taiji. The movie would have never been made if it wasn't for this small Sea Shepherd team that accompanied Rick O'Barry there.
Wait, the Cove with the dolphins?
Yes.
You were involved in that movie?
Not the movie. I was involved. I was on the original Sea Shepherd team. You know who Sea Shepherd is?
Can you? I don't know that
Wars. Sea Shepherd is a direct action organization. If you Google them, you will see they're the ones that ram ships up in the Antarctic that stop the whalers. Captain Paul Watson, who's Captain Paul Watson's the founder of Greenpeace. He left Greenpeace when Greenpeace changed their mission from saving whales to stopping nuclear proliferation. Paul Watson said, "This isn't for me. I'm going to start my own place." He became a pirate. And and so his organization, and they have a hit show on on Animal Planet for like 18 years called Whale Wars, where Animal Planet is on the ship with them as they're attacking the Japanese whaling crews and ships, and they're giant ships they go up against.
I love it. So that led to
So what happened
the
was...
dolphins.
Yes. And so what happened was Rick O'Barry's the main activist that's been the dolphin activist forever. He's world famous, and he should be. But he couldn't get anybody to accompany him to Japan to expose what was going on. And because he was so well known as a dolphin activist, when he came to Japan, they would follow him. The police would harass him. He couldn't do anything. So he asked Paul Watson for help. Can you send a crew, film crew, with me that can infiltrate the cove? And Paul Watson said yes. And I was one of the people on that infiltration. We go back to the fires. People, oh, you got to be... I'm not scared of that stuff. And I learned a lot in the Woolsey Malibu fires because I watched the firemen, how they dealt with the fires. And I was the only person there, and the firemen were nice to me. They weren't really happy that I was there, but they talked to me. And when I had to leave the first evacuation, when I got evacuated by the firemen and the helicopter, I said, I want the horses. And they said, horses is going to be difficult because the smoke and the fire. And the one guy felt bad for me. He said, he gave me a little thing to put around my face. And he said, listen.
You went up anyway.
Well, he said, listen, I tell you what, we're all evacuating now. The fire, we are too. We're going to go down the hill. But the fire's going to move through here. And we're going to go back up when it's safe. Just watch our fire trucks. When we go back up, follow us up. And that's what I did. So the fire came pretty quickly. It was still in there, but when they went back up, it was still fire, but it was, I guess, safe at that time. So I was watching and learning what's safe. How do they determine what safe is?
I know that it was more than just you went up after the fire trucks. I mean, I know your life was threatened.
I had been there a week earlier with Allison. We had gone because we were invited to meet this new horse sanctuary. So it was just coincidence. And a week later, the fires break out. And I'm seeing them in Malibu. So I called this person. I said, hey, you guys okay? It's Coral Canyon. And she said, we got the horses out. I said, oh, thank God. Yeah, we got almost all of them out. I said, almost?
Uh-oh.
She said the sheriffs were giving us a hard time. We got 9 out. We were blocking our trailer. Was trying because there's narrow roads in Coral Canyon. Our trailer was blocking the way for firemen. Their stables, their sanctuary, they had an upper stable near their house, and then they had a switchback trail that you had to walk down to into a valley, only walk into, lower stables. There were 2 horses down there. They're not cooperative, to say the least. I immediately rushed to Enterprise. I rented a pickup truck, big one, this big Ford F-150. Get the truck, get to the first barricade. Long story short, basically I had to blast through some barricades, go through without stopping, and upset the police. I got to the 76 station at the bottom of the hill, and I knew generally where this place was, up Coral Canyon. I decided just to shoot up there into the fire, into the smoke. Well, I went up there, and the smoke was so thick, I couldn't find the location.
This is the story.
And so I had to drive back down. And this guy came over and said, what are you doing? I said, I'm looking for such and such. He goes, oh, that's my neighbor. I said, do you know where it is? He goes, yeah, of course. What are you doing? I said, there's 2 horses up there. And he said, well, I know where it is. I can take you to it. I said, you'll come with me? He said, yes. So we got in my pickup truck. We went up there. He offered to come with me down the switchback trail to help me with the 2 horses. I didn't ask for help. He offered. So I took his offer. We got down there. There were no halters. So I had to use rope on these crazy horses. Just rope them. And I found some treats, some food. And that's what got them halfway up. But the problem is, in this valley, when you're down in the valley, you look up, it's like a lip of a volcano when you're looking up. So this valley is surrounded by a lip. And so as we're getting, the horses were very difficult, pulling, and they're pulling back, and they're jumping up and down. It's a little dangerous, especially for this other guy, this older guy.
Very dangerous.
And so they were just cantankerous. They didn't want to cooperate, but the food helped a lot. So we got about halfway up, but I kept looking up at the lip around us, and the lip was glowing, and it was glowing like breath. It got really, 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 really orange, and then it it faded. And then all of a sudden, like a wave, this really, really orange, got really orange, and then it crested like a wave of fire. And it crested, and it crashed, and it started to come down fast.
So it was all around you. This
Yes.
is a 360.
Yes. So I said to this guy's name is John. I panicked, so I'm not that much of a hero. I'm not that courageous. You'll find out why. I'm not too courageous, actually. I said, we got to leave the horses. And I threw the rope down because this thing was coming down all sides, coming down really fast. Yeah, an avalanche of fire.
Yeah.
And the wind something was sucking it down towards us. And so all around. So in a minute, there's not going to be no way out. And so he said, no, we can make it. I said, no, we can't. I said, let's run. He goes, I can't. And I said, why not? He goes, I have a broken ankle. And I'm like, why did you tell me? And he said, well, why didn't you tell me we're going down a switchback? And I said, all right, let's not argue. I think it's best that I run up and try to get firemen to help us. He said, go ahead. So I left him and the two horses. Not much of a hero.
That doesn't come on.
But the horses are 600 pounds and they're trying to kick us. They keep trying to turn and do the spin and do the kick.
Right, more like 1,200, I think.
1,200. So I run up and I have a flashlight, not a very powerful one, and I run up the hill and I'm screaming, not to anybody, I'm just screaming because I'm terrified. And I'm waving the flashlight, hoping somebody will see the flashlight. Nobody's going to see the fucking flashlight.
Not with a fire around you.
No, not with the smoke. And I got so scared, I hate to admit this, but I went to the bathroom on myself. Extreme terror.
I think that's very heroic, actually.
A miracle happened. A giant fire department helicopter came out of nowhere and hovered over me, like 20 feet above me, and started spraying the red stuff everywhere. They saved my life. I got to the top of the hill, and there were firemen waiting with a truck right there at the gate. Her gate was locked, by the way, because the electricity was out. It's one of those electric gates. So they were all waiting there, and they were trying to jimmy the gate open, which they did. And they're like, "What are you doing?" The firemen are yelling, "What's going on? What's wrong with you? What are you doing?" I said, "Horses, there's horses down there." And they said, "Well, you got to go. Let's go." And I said, "What about the horses?" And the fireman said, if this fire doesn't get them, the smoke will. Now, get the fuck out of there. They were yelling at me. I said, "Wait a minute, what about the other guy?" And they all stopped. They're like,
"There's a human being?"
And they're like, "What other guy?" I said, "There's a guy down there with a broken ankle." They're like, "Oh no." They put their tanks on the oxygen. So they got him, forced us to leave. So I drove John back down on the truck. So I jumped in my truck and I went back up. And I went back up.
Oh, really? So rough.
Which I didn't want to do, but I thought I learned that lesson from them. So I got to go up there and witness the whole thing. It's going to be horrible for me and cause major trauma, of course. But I knew that I had to respect the horses and do it and witness my failure, too, of getting them. And I walked into the corral, and there they were, standing there. Yes, there was a lot of smoke, and they were not doing well respiratory-wise, but they were alive. It's a great ending to the story, and the horses are fine. I quickly jumped in my truck, and I drove back down to the 76 station and I found a fireman. I said, "Hey, I've got spot fires. I'm trying to save these horses." He goes, "Oh, my God, it's you." I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's me. I didn't go anywhere." He goes, "Okay, what's the problem?" I said, "I ran out of water." And he goes, "There's no water. There should be enough water. We're going to have fires in Southern California. We need lots and lots and lots of water."
Yeah, well, I think this past fire is going to take care of that.
Yes, I think so, too.
It's interesting that at one point you said, "I wanted to go up and see and witness my failure." I mean, after all that you had done, that you could see, and even the yogic work, that you could see something like that as a failure is interesting to me, because by anyone else's standards, that's just massively heroic and impactful. And yeah, I see that as something so much more than a failure. I see it as a massive moral and individual achievement, that you put yourself aside for another living being. I mean, to me, that's just absolutely beautiful.
That part's good, but I did fail in getting them out in time. So that's. But they lived, so I didn't. But at the same time, I should have had a better plan. I don't know. There's a lot of things that I think about now that I could have done better.
Right. Well, that's, that, what is it, Monday night quarterbacking?
Yeah.
You're lucky you got out unscathed. And lungs. I mean, the lungs seem to be the big issue for a lot of people right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, this fire, my lungs are totally screwed up. In fact, I told you I went to Mexico to get this experimental stem cell nebulized treatment for the lungs, and it's helped. It's helped. In Mexico, they have this stem cell laboratory now.
What is the name of the place that you go?
The place, it's called Stem Cells Institute in Tijuana. Dr. San Miguel runs it. He owns the whole hospital there. They have their own laboratory and stem cells incubators on the property. A lot of places get the stem cells frozen and flown.
And the freezing is never, right? You prefer the fresh.
You prefer the fresh. So when I get them in Tijuana, they go, the incubator is 10 feet away from my arm.
Right. And these are the what's the?
Yes, yes.
Right, because they say...
And exosomes. They do exosomes and stem cells. So you could probably have anybody do the IV. A nurse can do that. But when you're having specific stuff done on the back and spinal cord and neck, you really want a guy like Dr. San Miguel.
Apparently for MS and rheumatoid arthritis, there's nothing like these treatments. They're remarkable.
I have a friend, his wife had really bad MS. She's been doing stem cells now for 2 or 3 years. Huge difference in her life.
How often does she have to go down?
She has really bad MS, and she's young, and she's a mom of 3 kids. So she has to go down at least 3 to 4 times a year and get a massive amount of stem cells.
That's fine. Is she mobile?
Yes, she's mobile now.
So she went from being non-ambulatory to ambulatory?
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be a game changer. And I know the FDA is stage 3 on 2 different trials right now. One's for the heart, one's for long COVID, which is the lung damage. And they're having phenomenal results. And this is on Google. You can Google it.
I believe it. I just get scared when the FDA or the NIH or anybody, big pharma, get involved in any of these practices. It's always petrifying to me.
Of course.
Like I used to be a big weed smoker, right?
Right.
And now that it's legal and it's controlled by the government, I won't go near it.
Right.
I just will not go near it.
Right.
So but it's pretty interesting, Billy. I mean, you seem to be like a pioneer and the cutting edge of a lot of things. And I wouldn't be surprised, really, if sort of your path of depression and whatever it is gets you there. I always go back to this quote, light enters at the wound.
Yeah.
And it just seems to me that your life has been a case in point of that philosophy. Like hard times as a child, and you're just constantly working on evolving.
Right. Yeah, that's what it is. And I'm a latecomer to the ayahuasca, though. So that's, but I'm glad I found it. And, I've been in AA for so many years. I'll have 20 years in less than a month. So I was always really afraid of doing anything outside of what the AA norm is.
Right, you thought it was...
No alcohol, no marijuana, no drugs, period. Advil, fine.
Because everything's a gateway or potentially a gateway.
Or you're changing. You're not supposed to do anything that changes you from here up. So that includes, but could include psychedelics. And as a teenager, in Long Island and Manhattan, I had done mushrooms. I always had very bad experiences on mushrooms. So I was pretty terrified of the idea of ayahuasca. But again, went through a really bad time of depression. I've been off Celexa for 10 years, and I didn't want to go back on.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So I went to Rhythmia, and it was unbelievable. The experience I had the first night was mind-blowing.
Yeah. No, I recommend it to anyone who feels called to it.
The clicking sound and the geometry, sacred geometry, and the colors was rewiring my brain. Clicking sound was working with the colors, with the clock going backwards.
Interesting.
And it was completely rewiring my brain. And I knew it.
That's fascinating. I mean, I think the whole experience rewires your brain, right? And
well, but this was like obvious to me.
Even for active drug addicts.
Oh, God,
right?
yes.
It's unbelievable.
And then little by little, that started trailing away as it does. Like the visions, the Pintas I was like, no, more. I was like, it was so wonderful.
I want to stay in it.
Yeah.
Did you do your second cup?
Well, no, hold on. And so then it kind of faded away, and I'm just laying there and kind of bored, and then I hear a female voice. And again, I'm suspicious. So
Grandma Maya.
This says to me, now we're going to work on your heart. Now, I have a cardiac event I didn't talk about. I can't talk about, but it's not good, and it was recent. And so my friend Johnny told me, do not put on the application, do not mention, because they could reject you for that. Do not tell anybody about the heart, because they don't want the liability there. So I said, okay. So that was very strange. I heard a female voice, and again, I'm very suspicious that it's some kind of thing. They've got some machine that's got a microphone there or a speaker. So I quickly look around. There's nobody there. There's like nobody but 50 feet from me.
What is she telling you?
So she said, we're going to work on your heart. So I have my hands like this. So after I did that, I put my hands back. I said, okay, should I move my hands? Because I'm blocking my heart. She said, we are your hands. And I'm like, okay.
You're healing yourself?
And then my hands heated up, and I felt like an electric vibration going into my chest. Right. And it lasted for almost a minute.
It was like the radiation going directly
in. And then it disappeared. I mean, it's pretty weird. It's hard to explain that.
Unless you've done it. Unless you've talked to someone who's doing it.
Right. It's unbelievable. I mean, I still don't, even to this day, I suspect that they had some kind of speaker somewhere.
I will say this, it certainly makes you believe in God or source or whatever. Yes. I mean, I don't like to use that word because people get so freaked out. But
yes.
Source or the energetic field or universal oneness, right?
Yes, there's something else for sure.
Oh, for sure. So you'll never question, right, incarnations and what have you. Yeah. We're sold.
Yeah.
And it's nice because it's not some human being telling us what to think. It's like the plant has its own consciousness.
Yes.
And it just connects to ours.
Right.
Well, Billy, this is great. This is a great interview. You're such a great interviewer. You've got such a wealth of knowledge and experience, and you're brave. You're brave, and there's so few people out there that are brave. And that they march to their own beat. And that's really what we're trying to bring in here.
Yeah.
Because those are the people we want to be leaders, right? That's who you want leading.
Yeah.
Thought leaders. I really want to thank you. Yeah, that was so much fun. I learned so much from you. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Yep. Fantastic.
Thanks, Billy.
Yeah.